This is a pre-lab lecture to accompany a lab in Chemistry 163 about ocean acidification and its impact on local shellfish. So first, I'd like to review ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is one of the effects of increased concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So as carbon emissions put more CO2, carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere, our oceans are going to absorb about a quarter of that. And there's a lot of heat that's generated in that process as well into our atmosphere. And the oceans are going to absorb that heat as well. And so they're doing a lot of work to balance out the effects of emitting a lot of carbon dioxide. And the way it's doing this absorption of carbon dioxide is by actually reacting with it. Gases have a pretty low solubility in liquids in general, especially as the temperature increases. But when carbon dioxide dissolves in water and forms aqueous CO2, as shown right here, it reacts with the water and forms carbonic acid, which is H2CO3. Carbonic acid decomposes relatively quickly back into carbon dioxide and water. And so that reaction is in equilibrium. But the the carbonic acid also reacts with water in an acid dissociation where it forms hydronium ions and bicarbonate, HCO3 minus. And this is a weak acid, and so only some of the carbonic acid will actually dissociate and form the bicarbonate and the hydronium ions. And so that is how we see oceans acidify. That H3O plus that builds up as CO2 dissolves in water and reacts with water to form carbonic acid is what's driving the pH drop. So as that H3O plus concentration increases, the pH of our water will decrease. And we can see this pretty easily just by bubbling CO2 that we exhale out through a straw into water. If we measure the pH as we do this, we can see it drop from 6.29 all the way down to 5.82 in just a couple of minutes when I was doing this in the lab. And so that process that we can show in the lab is also happening in our waters locally. And in the Puget Sound, this is already having a really big impact on the shellfish industry. So let's look at what's actually happening and how this is hurting shellfish. So let's go back to our carbonic acid dissociation reaction. So again, weak acid with a Ka of 4.5 times 10 to the negative seventh. It creates some hydronium ions and increases that concentration in the water. So as that hydronium ion concentration increases, as we can see in this acid dissociation reaction for bicarbonate, it's going to shift equilibrium towards the bicarbonate and consume the carbonate ions that are also in solution. So to shift equilibrium to maintain it as that H3O plus concentration increases, H3O plus will react with CO3 2 minus and form HCO3 minus. That consumes the carbonate, the CO3 2 minus that's in the water. And so if we think about the solubility of calcium carbonate, which is seashells are just calcium carbonate. In water, it has a very, very low solubility. It's 3.3 times 10 to the negative ninth. This is its solubility product. So if we think about that equilibrium between the solid calcium carbonate and the dissolved calcium carbonate ions, as that CO3 2 minus, the carbonate ion concentration decreases as the previous equilibrium shifts, we're going to see that the calcium carbonate equilibrium as a solid to the ions has to shift to make more calcium and more carbonate to maintain that balance that's described by the KSP. And so the net effect of this is that as H3O plus concentrations increase with increasing carbonic acid, it means that our calcium carbonate solids are going to dissolve more. And now, the experiment that you can do is to actually watch seashells dissolve over time. A group took seashells, petropod shells, and placed them in seawater that was then pH adjusted to the projected levels of carbonate and hydronium ions for the year 2100. And slowly they saw these shells dissolve. And after 45 days, they dissolved completely. Now, this is an exaggeration, and that allows us to see the effect in time that is easy for us to observe, which is what we'll be doing in our lab this week. Now, that's pretty awful. It's pretty depressing to think about seashells dissolving in our waters already. And it's having a pretty big impact on our ability to collect shellfish that has been able to make it to maturity, as this impacts small shellfish, shellfish seeds or baby oysters and clams the most as they're growing. And what I want to focus on for the next few slides is how this can be addressed because it's something we're already seeing happening in the Pacific Northwest. And the Swinomish tribe has done a lot of work to explore solutions or ways to mitigate the majority of the impact. So they've done this in two ways that I think are really interesting. So the first is by reviving a practice of making clam gardens. Now, this is like a ancient practice, like dating back to 3,500 years ago, as where the records show. But it's a method that has been used in Pacific Northwest tribes in the past to create spaces that were safer for shellfish to grow and develop. It's a way to protect them. And so recently, the Swinomish tribe, using like a Washington Sea grant and collaborating with NOAA, worked as a community to build a clam garden. And they did this by creating a 200-foot long, 2-foot high wall out in the intertidal zone, and then crushed up a whole bunch of shells, which are just calcium carbonate, and sprinkled that all along the wall in the clam bed. And then as the tide rises, it creates a space that is protected from the harder churn of the waves. And also, there's the extra crushed seashells that are providing calcium and carbonate ions into the waters that are in that clam garden. And it makes it a much safer environment for shellfish to develop. Now, the Swinomish tribe is doing another really cool project that over the past number of years that's been really interesting in that they have revived a indigenous oyster, the Olympia oyster, that is much smaller than the ones that you're typically used to getting at the store. But they were able to show that that these oysters could be revived and brought back to a healthy population. And to do that, they did it within eelgrass meadows and demonstrated something else, which is that you could farm shellfish in eelgrass meadows without harming them. And that the eelgrass meadow itself will create a environment for the oysters and other shellfish and other marine organisms that protects it and buffers it against some of the harsher elements of the ocean. And actually, in 2018, the Swinomish tribe actually filed a lawsuit against the federal government, fighting against the failure of regulatory powers to protect eelgrass meadows. And now we see all along the Salish Sea coast that there are now protected eelgrass meadow spaces that we are working to revitalize our eelgrass meadows and help them grow and grow and grow. What we see with these eelgrass meadows is that they make it much easier for shellfish and other organisms to thrive. So this is another really amazing way that a local tribe has been working to try to buffer our waters from the impact of increasing carbon dioxide concentrations in our atmosphere. So, in this lab, we're going to observe the effect of elevated carbon dioxide levels on shellfish. We're going to carbonate seawater and we are going to let seashells soak in it for a number of days and see what the impact is. We are going to look at the change in mass of the shells. We're also going to analyze the amount of calcium ions that are in solution in a carbonated and a non carbonated sample. As we do that work, we will most likely observe that the seashells dissolve in our carbonated water. As we analyze our results from lab, I also want us to learn more about ways to mitigate the effect we're going to be observing. And so I want everyone to choose one of three strategies to learn about in more depth as you do this lab. One would be learning about eelgrass meadows. Another would be learning about clam gardens. And another would be learning about just adjusting the seawater pH using soda ash in a kind of nursery setting for shellfish. Let me give you a little bit more about each of these three before we go into lab this week. So when we think about our eelgrass meadows, they create a protective space because they are going to be kind of like anchor points for lots of different organisms and a shelter, but also they are grass. They are a plant, and plants through photosynthesis take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and produce oxygen. In this picture here, you can actually see little oxygen bubbles in an eelgrass meadow being released. Photosynthesis is being carried out by photosystem 2. This is a transition metal complex in a metalloenzyme. Metalloenzyme is shown here in the upper left-hand corner, and its active site where the catalysis takes place, where water is split into hydrogen and oxygen, as part of the many steps to of photosynthesis. You can see it right here that this is manganese and calcium and oxygen atoms that are creating a catalytic center for this work to be done. And so the eelgrass meadows are going to decrease the dissolved carbon dioxide concentration and increase the amount of oxygen in the water. This is effectively going to increase the pH of acidified water, allowing our shellfish then and our other organisms to grow and thrive in waters that have a more normal pH. See, here's the bubbles. And we will learn more about transition metals later in the quarter in chapter 19 of our textbook. And then there's clam gardens. So clam gardens are going to protect shellfish from the beat and the churn of waves. So that amount of energy that's coming in harsh waves can make it harder for a shellfish to develop. And so the gardens kind of protect them. But another thing that is done in creating them is old shells are crushed up finely and then sprinkled all along the sea wall that's being created for the clam garden. By doing this, we are adding more carbon or calcium carbonate solid into that environment. And so when we see an increase in the hydronium ion concentration as our oceans acidify, and we see a shift in this bicarbonate dissociation equilibrium that would consume our carbonate ions, making them less accessible to shellfish that are growing. If we have lots of calcium carbonate in solid around, as that carbonate concentration decreases, more of those shells can dissolve, creating a higher concentration of calcium and carbonate, replacing that and creating a better balance. And so this is essentially putting a lot of excess calcium carbonate into that environment. It makes those ions readily available to the shellfish that are growing. And also, this can help mitigate the impact of H3O plus concentrations increasing and the pH dropping. All that extra carbonate will essentially have a small local effect on the pH of the water and the calcium and the carbonate concentrations there. And this touches on multiple equilibria and solubility covered in all of the chapters that we've talked about, acid-base chemistry and also equilibrium. And now a third way of addressing this that you can look at is what is being done by our local fisheries. And so shellfish farming is a large industry in the Pacific Northwest. Taylor Shellfish Farms is an example of one of these companies. And one of the strategies that they have employed when the waters are too acidic, which is already happening, is to create shellfish nurseries where seawater is pumped into a tank where the shellfish are going to be developing the shellfish seeds until they are large enough to put out into the tidal zones, intertidal zones. And so the water that's coming in from the Puget Sound is too acidic for these shellfish to develop. And so they have a very low chance of actually making it to adulthood. And so what Taylor Shellfish does is they actually add soda ash into the shellfish nursery seawater. And soda ash is sodium carbonate, so that's Na plus and CO3 minus for our 2 minus for our ions. And it's a much more soluble form of carbonate ion than calcium carbonate. So this will readily dissolve in water. And so soda ash can be added into the solution to pH adjust while also providing one of the nutrients that shellfish need or the ions that shellfish need to grow their shells. And so this is another way to handle the issue and to try to address it so that way our shellfish industry continues to thrive. So all three of these are really fascinating strategies, and I hope that you can choose one to learn a little bit more about in detail.